educational critical review and reaction is the late, great Jordan Maxwell.
Well, I would like to say that, first of all, I have a very high regard for the concept, the very idea of God. Now, we can discuss back and forth for the next two years as to what you mean about God, as opposed to what I mean when I use the word God. We need to define our terms anytime you're discussing arcane subjects and difficult subjects. You need to, clarify what you're talking about. I am not talking about the Catholic people. My mother and my father and my brother and my whole family were Catholics. My whole family is gone now, and I miss them terribly. But they were all Catholic, and I was too. I was raised Catholic. So I'm not condemning the Catholic people. I'd never condemn my own mother. And I would never condemn all my friends that I had. What I'm saying is that when I was very young, I really had an appetite for learning. I wanted to understand what I believe and why I believe it, and be able to talk publicly about it, like the Bible says, be able to defend your belief intellectually and intelligently to people who don't believe. And so I really just grew up that way. I just loved knowledge. I wanted to learn why things are the way they are. And if we're going to talk about God and the heavens and the demons and devils and angels, what are you talking about? Translate that so I can understand it. And so I used to go to different churches when I was a kid. My mom would let me go to anything I wanted, to any churches I wanted, and I did. All the time I would go with my friends in school to their churches, hoping that I could find someone who was intellectually astute on these kind of questions about theology. And as a little kid, I just wanted to know about God. I want to know. I don't want to believe anything, because I know when you believe something, you are relying on your own understanding to the best of your ability. So this is what you believe. I don't want to believe. I want to know for a fact, and I want to understand it so I can explain it to others why I believe something. I can prove it to an audience of people why I believe something, or at least show the audience how I came to my different understandings and my different belief systems. So I have the highest respect for God, so to speak. I know that there is a divine presence in the universe that men have called God. I refer to it as the Great Spirit. And I believe that there is a divine, intelligent, profoundly wise spirit that governs life on the earth and governs our universe. And so I don't have any problem with the idea of God. And I love the nature of the world that we live in, the nature of animals and the life forms that we have on the earth. And I realized they didn't just pop in out of nowhere, out of evolution. Right. Someone created all of this beautiful thing that we call our world and our life. And so I don't have any problem with bowing to a higher force that men have called God. I do believe in God. What I am trying to say is that for way too many centuries, organizations, men's personal organizations that they founded and put together, are companies and corporations and businesses and churches and banks and whatever else you want to look at that we humans have put together. We put things together as a business for a purpose, for a reason. And so I learned a long time ago from the inside that so much of our belief systems and our government and what we believe about the law enforcement and what we believe about the military and the police department and banks, insurance companies and religions and all kinds of things that man-made institutions that we use and we believe in, are not what you think they are. They are created by humans. They're created by people. And so even at a young age, I realized that. And that's why I was going to different churches so I could learn, hopefully learn from, from older people and from people who were teaching the theologies and religions. Excuse me. And so that's why I would go to the different churches all the time with my young friends, hoping to learn and understand God, my life, and who I am, and why am I here, and where are we going. And I became very, very distraught, very, very disheartened, because everywhere I went, and all the different groups and different churches and synagogues and everywhere else I went, nobody ever took the time to explain anything simple to me, because it was as if simple things, simple questions that a child would have, it's just mind-boggling to adults, because they've never thought on that level as a child. And so I would ask questions, and the adults would look at me like I was a fool, like I had two heads. And so I realized that the adults are actually, and I knew this when I was 9 and 10 years old. I used to say this to my mom and dad. You know, adults are just grown-up children. I mean, I'll be an adult soon, and one day I'll be your age. But I'm just a child right now, so what's going to change? Nothing. Nothing's going to change. I don't know anything right now. I don't understand anything because I'm a child. And every time I ask adults that I go to churches and I ask them questions about God, they don't know either. So it became apparent to me by the ripe old age of 12, 13, 14 years old that adults are simply grown-up children. Their bodies have matured, but their brains are still at the 7th and 8th grade level. And so I began to realize that if you're going to find out something, then do it yourself, because you're not going to find it in a church. You're not going to find it in a religion, because people who are in charge of the different churches don't know a thing about what it is they're doing. And it became apparent to me that churches and religions are nothing more than social arrangements, like the Cub Scouts and the ladies' clubs and the Masonic orders for the men and the women's clubs for women and the campfire girls. These are all social groups where the different groups of humans can get together. You know, teenagers can get together, or grown men, businessmen can get together. And so I realized that all the world is made up of associations where people get together of like mind, people who like a particular a philosophy or particular belief. They all hang out together, and people who belong to a particular church or belong to a political party, they all hang out together. And so I just viewed, coming up as a child, that the religious philosophies and churches and synagogues and temples all around the world were nothing but social arrangements where people of like mind who collectively do not know what they're doing. They have no idea about what they believe. They have no conceptual reality. They have no concept of what they're talking about, God. And they get all excited if you talk about God, but nobody knows what God is. I said God is dog, spelled backwards. And so I realized that the whole world is lying in ignorance everywhere I go. And then as I grew up, I grew older and began to lecture on these subjects that I was reading and studying 24 hours a day, when everybody else was on skateboards and going to football games in school. I was in the libraries, university libraries, reading and studying history. Where did things come from? And the longer I did that, the more it became apparent to me that that's the way you learn. If you want to know, then do your own homework. Go out and spend weeks and months and years in university libraries. You don't have to go necessarily to a university for 4, 5, 6 years, because that is a curriculum which is already decided for you to teach you what they want you to know. So they will give you a permit to work. It's a working permit. They give you a license to go to work. I don't need a license to go to work. I'm trying to find out who I am and where did we come from, and worst of all, where are we going when we die, because you get ready for it. You're going to leave this planet one day, and when you do, whatever it is you thought you believed, you're going to find out on the other side you didn't know what was going on. You have no idea about the history of this earth and the history of religions and concepts and ideas and belief systems. And so that's what I've been trying to do all my life, is I've lived my life in libraries, university libraries, big seminary libraries all over the country.
Let me interrupt you and ask you one of the relevant questions to exactly what you're talking about right now that was sent in. First of all, they wanted to know if you were familiar with Manly P. Hall, and also, have you ever been to the Philosophical Research Society Library in California, which apparently contains a whole lot of philosophical and also religious artifacts, data, manuscripts, and books. Have you ever been there, and are you familiar with it?
Manly P. Hall was not only a personal friend of mine that I used to go to his home, but when he passed away, in his will, I was called by Obadiah Harris, who was at that time the president and chairman of the board of the Manly P. Hall Philosophical Research Society. It's a big university in Los Angeles on Los Feliz Street. And I got a phone call. I was working at the Truth Seeker Company in San Diego. And Obadiah said, "Jordan, Mr. Hall left a will and you are in it. And he has left you something very valuable, and he wanted you to have it." And I said, "Obadiah, what did he leave me?" He said, "I'm not going to tell you. You just come up here and you'll see it." So I immediately got in my car that day and drove up to Los Angeles from San Diego and went over, because I've been to Mr. Hall's library hundreds of times, just over the years I've been there. And used to go there on Sundays and hear Mr. Hall's lectures and talks. I was fascinated by the brilliance. This is what I've been looking for all my life. Somebody who had the answers. Somebody who knew what the words meant and broke down the etymology of the concepts and where these ideas have come from. Well, that was the tremendous work Mr. Hall had done. And so when I got there to find out what he had left me, in his will, Mr. Hall left me all of his research volumes. They were his research journals. And there was I don't even know, maybe 150 of them, beautiful journals with all of his research in them. And going all the way back to 1936 to the day he passed. And he left it all present to me. And so that shocked me. I was actually rather taken back. I was shocked that such a phenomenal treasure Mr. Hall would personally leave to me in his will. And so I not only knew Mr. Hall personally, I used to, as a matter of fact, just a few months before he passed away, I gave him an award. I was part of an organization called US of A, United Sensitives of America. And I was on the governing body of the organization, and it was a large group of different, what we call sensitives, psychics, researchers, historians, numerologists, all kinds of interesting people, some of them writers for television, etc., on esoteric and occult subjects. And I was on the board of directors with that organization. And so we had a big, every year we would have a big we'd have not a fundraiser, but we'd have a big award dinner where we would give awards to certain people who have done, very big things for the human family, teachers and lecturers and researchers, etc. And so I suggested Mr. Hall, and we did give him an award, and he was there that night. And I was so absolutely delighted I was able to introduce Mr. Hall, my dear friend, and not knowing that he was leaving me all his research journals and the will. But yes, I knew Mr. Hall, and he was an incredibly brilliant man. I do believe, and it's just my personal belief, that Mr. Hall was probably one of the most incredible spiritual minds that has ever visited our earth. This man could speak for hours upon hours on all the intricacies of religion, theologies, concepts, and belief systems, of where they came from and what they meant and how to understand them in relation to today's world. And my God, he must have written 50 or 60 books and hundreds of articles and given thousands of lectures, quite literally around the world and through his own college and university. The man was an astoundingly brilliant, in theories and understanding religions and government and historians. There's no one like him. There's never been anyone like him.
Right.
And we talk about the great philosophers of the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans and all of that. But as far as I'm concerned, there's nobody came close to Mr. Manly P. Hall, who was a brilliant and wonderful and dear man, and he was a dear friend of mine. And so I'm just amazed that I even got to know him. But he was the answer a long time ago to, I knew that there was information out there in the world, and I wanted it so bad. As the scripture says, knock and it will be open, and seek and you will find. Ask and it will be given. Well, I was seeking and knocking and going to every church I could, every group, every research society, wherever I could go to hear speakers explain to me the world I live in. Nobody ever accomplished that. Nobody ever knew enough to tell me anything. So I was just wasting my young years going to churches where nobody knew what they were doing. Nobody had the faintest idea about what I'm talking about, until I met Mr. Hall, who that's all he did was explain the world to you. Everything, where all the religions have come from, where all the philosophies came from, what they meant, what the words meant, the etymology of the terms. It was such an extraordinary experience. And from there, that was in my 18, 19-year-old. And then from there, I began to go deeply. Now that I know the basics, now I know what's going on here. And I understand the lies and the deception that the world believes because they don't know. This is why, if you, like I said before, if you go to a church today, people will ask you, oh, are you a believer? Yes, I'm a believer. And so, oh, well, how long have you been a believer? And so they have books in church libraries and church bookstores called, with the term believer in it. A lot of the books are called Believer's House of Faith or Believer's this or Believer's that. It implies you believe something, which implies you don't know anything, but you believe something. I don't want to believe. I have been too often I have been misled. Why? Because I didn't know. And I thought that these people who were older than me, they have white and gray hair, and I assumed they were the teachers. I listened to them, and then I would ask them questions, and then they would look at me as a child like a deer in the headlights of a car. They had no idea what I'm talking about. Right. And so therefore, like Albert Einstein said one time in one of his books, he said the teachers used to tell us that we had to answer their questions. But I asked, how come you can't answer our questions? And that's what I felt. I have questions that the teachers of religion couldn't answer. Why? Because they're too simple-minded. Just a child would think of them. And I would I just ask a question, and the priest would look at me like I'm a fool. I got 3 heads, because he didn't know how to answer the question. I would ask my parents, I would ask people all around me, adults. Nobody seemed to know what they were doing. And so therefore, I pretty much assumed that grown-ups are just grown-up in body, but in their minds, they're still children. They don't know anything. I want to know. I want to prove it. I want somebody to show me what it is that's happening and prove it to me so I can understand it correctly. And that you're not going to get in any church or any synagogue or any temple. But once you get past that and wake up and now begin to mature, not just your body, but your mind, and begin to question things. And if you really want to know, and if you're intellectually honest and are ready to hear the real truth, it's out there. All you need to do is just go ask, and it will be given. Knock, and it will be open. Seek, and you will find.